positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we are super happy to have you here, and we just ask that you bring an open mind and heart to your listening experience and to be prepared to explore vantage points that I'm convinced will help shift or solidify your current understanding of the ultimate nature of reality in a way that is extremely empowering. Speaking of exploring powerful perspectives, I would like to gift my book, The Golden Key, Modern Alchemy to Unlock Infinite Abundance to you at goldenkey.gift, where you can get the audio or ebook as my gift to you by using the code POSITIVEHEAD at checkout. All right, all you positive heads. On this week's Soul Share episode, I am thrilled to have Sheila and Marcus Gillette back here with me on the show. Since Sheila's near-death experience over 25 years ago, she has been a direct voice medium for THEO, a collective of 12 archangels who she continues to channel as inspiration to the world, along with the help of her partner, Marcus. And they're doing so together in their latest book, The Art of Relationship, which shares angelic insights for creating soulful human connections. Hello, Sheila and Marcus. Welcome back to the show, my friends.
Hey, it's great to be with you again. It's nice to see, I'm going to say old friend, but a friend, maybe, that,
Young at heart.
Young at heart. Not an old friend, just a friend. Brandon, it's great to see you again, man. It's great to be here with you.
Likewise. You two are such a pleasure. And of course, having THEO come through is so exciting. And for those who aren't familiar, you can go back to episode 229. And if you go to positivehead.com, you can go back to the beginning. And that's when you guys were originally on, 2016. I can't believe it's been 6 years. And just really looking forward to this. And I'm going to start with the same cliche opening question for you both that I start with these days. And it is this. You're in an elevator. The woman next to you looks over, says, "What's your passion?" You have 10 floors to answer. What do you say?
Yeah, well, I would be happy to start. I'm always deferring to Sheila as the first questioner here, always. But no, I think if I would say that it's funny that we're talking about this because we call this verbing your noun, meaning we teach people to love themselves, right? So the mission of our company is to assist people in knowing themselves as the divine spiritual beings that they are, and then how that expresses in their life it's just a game changer, like you and I were talking a little bit about earlier. So we teach people to love themselves. That's at the core of what we do, and by virtue of doing that through the soul integration process that THEO brought forth decades ago. Sheila and THEO have been teaching this for way beyond the 25 years that I've known Sheila, been together with her. And when we understand, working with the core principle, that any belief that we hold about ourselves that is anything other than unconditionally loving is simply not true. And by virtue of identifying the core circumstances in which untrue beliefs were adopted or created, whether it be this lifetime or any other incarnation, we can then apply that awareness into our current day circumstances to move into emotional mastery and a level of psychic and spiritual connection that is really difficult even to describe how awesome that feels. That's pretty much what I would say. I'd be down about the second floor at this point, and probably.
I was about to say that's what I call the Willy Wonka answer, and it's if you remember Willy Wonka, where the elevator shoots through the roof and out into the cosmos, which we allow Willy Wonka.
We're hoping that a number of people jumped on the elevator while I was talking.
Yeah, exactly.
That made me smile, and that's why I called on Marcus. We often talk about the elevator conversation and how to respond, and so I kind of had the little grin because this is a topic we've talked about, and how do you pique interest? and letting people know about what you do. And I often say, well, I'm a spiritual medium, and that's all I need to say most of the time, because then people go, wow, what is that?
Ooh, yeah, yeah,
Back
yeah,
in
yeah.
the day, I really have been doing this work 5 decades. And, in the beginning, I couldn't say those things because people had so much fear around any kind of
Yeah.
psychic phenomena or anything like that. So it's just a lovely time, exquisite time to be alive and to be doing this work, because I can so easily have a conversation with people now than I could in the beginning.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's a lot of decades there, and you've seen the arc of I'm 25 years into my spiritual journey, and the difference between now and the mid 90s when I first had my own sort of remembering is it's like night and day,
Well, sure.
and now it's especially it's like you have a lot of like 21-year-olds. Oh yeah, of course I know I'm one with everything. What else is new? And especially in the transformational kind of festival community and stuff that I'm pretty involved in. It's like there's so many young people that are just very very awake and remembering. So it's like you said, it's a beautiful time to be alive, and yeah, I'd love for you both, if you would. In episode 229 goes deep. I mean, your backstory is fascinating. It's amazing because it's this show. I've shared quite a few clips over the years of Esther Hicks and Abraham, and Sheila, for those of you who don't know, actually was the first one who kind of exposed Esther to channeling, right?
It's
You
true.
were like the one who called it for her. And I think that is like, wow, what a cool thing. So maybe you can both just share whatever feels relevant about your backstory, knowing that if someone wants to hear the very deep story, they could go back to, the previous episode.
So I will share that this all started in 1969 for me, after a near-death experience after the birth of a child and having pulmonary embolus. And I had a miraculous healing in intensive care by asking God, give me a job, I'll do anything. And so I really
Mm,
feel that I'm here on this planet doing this job because that I said yes in those moments
right.
to being the vehicle for the 12 archangels to speak directly to through me, and for all of us in the sense of this transformation of consciousness that is happening now. This is the time
Mm,
of the fifth dimension, and this is what we've incarnated for. This is the change, and the change is changing belief patterns that have been passed along, to Marcus's point, in the soul integrational process that THEO brought forward many decades ago. It's changing beliefs about ourselves that are untrue, those limiting beliefs. And if everybody
mm,
does that, we'll have peace on our planet.
Yeah, I love you. I love your use
yeah.
of the word remembering. I think that's really what's happening right now is we're all awakening, to who we remembering who we really are, and that's
And redash membering, I even
yeah,
like to say, coming back together in
yeah,
the
yeah,
process.
yeah, absolutely. We've
Mhm.
got a chapter in our new book, the Art of Relationship, that is entitled "Haven't We Met Somewhere Before?" And there's this awakening that's
I
taking
love that.
place. We're not only remembering who we are, remembering who our soul family is as well, which is really super exciting.
Mm,
We make connections with people that the first thing we think about is, oh, we finally found each other again, in this lifetime. And there's
mm,
magic, obviously a lot of
yeah.
magic in that. And just to complete the answer to your question, it was just for me in my own personal, and you know this, Brandon. I mean, as a uh, growing up in a Catholic home with great parents, supportive parents, very religious. Right around the age of 15, I started having out of body experiences, and I started realizing that a lot of the teachings that I'd been brought up with just weren't true. So I just kind of went off on my own path, had no conflict at all with it, except not really understanding until I got into my mid 30s that, oh my God, there's just so much more that I can. So like you, I know your path has been similar to my own in terms of just, once you have that remembrance, that inkling of who we really are,
Mm-hmm.
you all of a sudden just can't get enough of everything. And it was decades for me. And then I met Sheila and Theo, and in '97 when we met, I was given Sheila's first book, The Fifth Dimension, Channels to a New Reality, in 1995 by a mutual friend of ours, which we write about in the first chapter of the book. Kind of some of the little magic that took place for that. To talk about, haven't we met somewhere before?
Right.
When I found Theo, when I found Sheila, um, everything just came together for me. The whole process of remembering just um, exploded for me, if you will. It just became illuminated. Really getting clear when I started working with Theo as my mentors as to who I really am and what I'm really here to do. So it was amazing, frankly. When this all took place back in
Yeah.
'97 when
Wow.
we first got together.
Yeah, I love how the synchronicity and spiritual breadcrumbs weave. They've just only increased for me. It's like a daily occurrence of at least one significant synchronicity, it seems. And I love what you said. Haven't we met somewhere before? So I released my first book, The Golden Key, a little over a year ago, and the way it opens is nice to meet you again for the first
Yeah.
time. And so it's very similar. We're definitely aligned in our thinking about how that all works. So, well, yeah, I'd love to just dive in here and just get as much insight as possible. Obviously, going to get the book, The Art of Relationship, it comes out as of this recording next
That's
month.
correct. But there,
Correct?
there is a pre-sale that they can get to through our website at askthéo.com, and we can just there's a pre-sale opportunity with a lot of really cool bonuses, and
AskTheo.com. You said,
askthéo.com,
yeah.
yeah, and uh, there's a number of bonuses, including a live event that we're doing with those that pre-purchase the book. But the book will be released on September 21st, and it'll be in people's hands shortly thereafter. The ebook, of course, will be released at the same time as well. And then to come will be the audiobook and an online video course that we're just finishing up right now. That'll accompany the art of relationship.
Gotcha. Okay, great. And so, um, yeah, where to start? I mean, obviously, relationship. You said something to me, Marcus, before we started recording. You know, you kind of put to Theo, what should we do next? And the word relationship, was the primary focus of what what the focus should be for you guys in the book. And so, why relationship? Why is that so key? Would you say as we continue to shift into this new era of consciousness?
Well, nothing's more important than the relationship we have with ourself, right? And so
Mm.
to what you and I were speaking about earlier, Brandon, Theo talks about our purpose for incarnating is to learn emotions. That's what's really, truly unique to
Hmm.
the human experience and the,
Mm.
the learning, the ongoing learning, the eternal journey of the soul. Every time we incarnate in physical form, human form, we're learning emotions, and we continue. It's like when you meet
Yeah.
people who you would deem as old souls, right? There's a certain sense of peace, there's a certain sense of calm, and whatever that vibration, that feel good vibration you have when being in their presence. Conversely, there's people who you don't feel that for and with when you're around them, right? Or who might be stuck in old patterns of victimization and so forth. And Theo, and they're hanging on to that victim story for this whole lifetime, right? And subsequently, it affects their relationships in a very discordant way. So when we talk about Theo's answer being relationships, they start with, of course, the relationship to the self. And Theo says, if you could see yourselves as we see you, there would be no discontent, only joy and only love. So that's really what, for us, relationships mean. It's about the relationship to the self, from which then we can have incredibly fulfilling and joyous and loving relationships in all aspects of our lives without drama.
Right.
Well, and also, Theo says everything's relationships. Everything's relational, and it's first the self, but family, primary partner
Hmm.
relationships, children, workmates. All we're relating all the time. We're relating to the person that's checking us out at the market. So everything we do is relational because we're interactive with each other. And Theo also says we don't hang our soul up in the closet when we go to work, when we go shopping, when, we're everything's spiritual as well. Our soul is directing these adventures. We could call them challenges in our life, but that's just the curriculum of what our soul has chosen to learn from. And when we change our belief systems about being curious and why is this happening for me rather than to me, then the trajectory of our life changes forever when we change those things in us, in our relationship to the self.
Yeah. Yeah. And, it's we talked, Marcus, we talked for about 5 minutes before we started recording. And I was like, okay, we got to stop because we're going too deep, too quick. And this needs to be on the recording. It's a great stuff. And one of the things that we talked about was, that I so agree with is how important that relationship is to the self, and how, something that I've said oftentimes on the show, we all have wildly varying paths in life. And the one thing that I think is in common with each and every one of us, and tell me if you agree, is that the number one thing we're all here to figure out on our unique journeys is self-love, because everything is starting from there. And would you agree with that statement, Sheila?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's been Theo's teaching for all these years. And what's happened with the soul integrational process, they were teaching as I was working with individual clients over the years and one-on-one on how to do the process and how to change individual lives. And what I realized in that time is, oh my gosh, when Theo told me, well, this will be a global teaching, and this is way before the internet and home computers, I thought, gosh, and at that time I was flying to different cities and meeting with clients individually or doing sessions over the phone. And so I thought, if this is going to be global, how I can't meet 8 billion people. So
Right.
we developed some mentoring programs that teach the process. And so we've seen it grow exponentially. And I can see now as people are using it and learning to love themselves, to Marcus's point earlier, it's amazing what's happened to our brief conversation before we started, and as you know in your work, to get feedback from someone that their life has been changed for the better and they're happy, and to get that kind of feedback over the years, there's nothing better than to know that
It really
you've
isn't.
assisted somebody to love themselves.
Yeah, it is. It is the most rewarding thing. I've, experienced a lot of things I'm proud of, and of course, some I'm not. But that's definitely been the most rewarding thing for me too. It's like helping. It's like Gandhi said, if you want to find yourself, lose yourself in the service of others. Yes. And I believe that holds true because there are no others. And by doing so, it really touches on such a core part of who we're here to be. And yeah, it's not really a replacement.
Yeah, and I was going to say that core part that you're talking about, Brandon, is that it's aligning what we truly believe we desire with what we truly believe. If that makes any sense, right? It's in other words, when we have the first thought of desire for something, the second and the third thought that have been now part of our neural pathways, our go-to response to life supports that. It is in alignment with that, instead of where we see a lot of people remaining in their belief system is, oh, I'm not worthy enough. I'm not good enough. That I don't deserve that. That's for others. Well, Theo is really clear, and you know this, that every one of us has that you used the term our unique gifts earlier. Each one of us has something truly unique. Theo calls it the soul note, too, by the way. How Theo connects into the questioner is through the vibrational frequency of our voice. Each one of us has a unique
Mm,
soul note that indeed connects them into the
mm,
entirety of our soul. That's how they can read us so clearly and know things about us that we don't yet remember about ourselves. And
wow.
so I think it's that moment where we either believe we deserve to take the steps to move forward, to be and do and have and to create the things that we truly desire, or not. And that or not is typically where the second and third thoughts don't align with what we believe we desire. And that's what Theo's
Mm,
teachings assist us in rewiring, repatterning our belief system in a way that supportive, positive, loving, deserving, worthy response to life becomes our go-to response.
mm, mm.
Well,
Yeah.
Thoreau, the transcendentalists spoke about these things as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none of this information is new. There have been teachers in history. Jesus is one of them. Buddha is one of them. We've
Mm-hmm.
had teachers teaching this message of to love the self. And now
Mm-hmm.
we're getting down to the brass tacks because
Yeah.
in this time that if like Theo says, if everybody does this whole integration and learns how to love themselves, we'll have peace on our planet because we'll treat each other appropriately with love. And we're collaborative species, not a competitive species. If something
Yeah.
horrific happens on the planet now with the internet, we see it in an instant. So,
Yeah.
and what happens in probably 99% of us in the 8 billion people is our compassion button gets pushed.
Yeah.
What can I do?
Right.
How can I help? How, and most of us are like that. We want to help, and it doesn't matter where in the world it's happening. So we have evidence and proof of this when we get out of the not enough's, not worthy, you're separate from me, the other, as you spoke, there's no other. Uh, we can have peace because w- can you I mean, it would be magnificent with all the creative energy that people have coming together and collaborating. What could happen in this world
Right.
if we could do that, right? Not if,
Yeah.
when. I'm going to say when we do that.
Mm-hmm. I agree. It's it seems like the inevitable path, and more people are waking up to that and realizing that, and of course, it's a messy process for the caterpillar to become a butterfly. And I
Yeah.
think sometimes we get caught up on that, like, oh my goodness, look at all the things melting around us, and it's like, well, the caterpillar cells literally turn to goo, and that fuel becomes the fuel for the butterfly to emerge. So all the destruction that the little caterpillar, perpetuated through destroying my mother's geraniums, as when I was talking to her about this, she instantly piped up, yeah, they just ate my geraniums. It's like, yeah, and all that destruction is the fuel that makes the butterfly
Well,
possible,
and to your
right?
point about the butterfly, they're in the chrysalis, and when
Yep.
they're ready to birth into their new world, into their new experience, and come out of the chrysalis, if you've ever seen them do that, and I would suggest everybody goes to the butterfly pavilion in your wherever you are, because they have many of them spread out throughout the world, to just see the process. But the butterfly really struggles to break free of that chrysalis, but it
Mm-hmm.
needs the struggle. If we were to cut that chrysalis open, the butterfly wouldn't be able to fly because it wouldn't have the musculature to. So this what
Yep.
appears as struggle to get out of there is building its musculature so that it can fly. And so Theo has given us that analogy. I was so thrilled that you brought it up this time, and to your point, birthing is messy. We're birthing a new way of being in the world. We're transforming all of those patterns and belief systems that have been passed along for centuries that don't work. And we now, here on this planet, having chosen to incarnate, we're here for that process. And I find it extremely exciting, even though it's really chaotic out there. But out of the chaos will come order again, but a new order of things, which I think is very exciting.
There's two ways that the story of the butterfly applies to relationships too, and one is obviously the personal quote unquote struggle. Theo says struggle is optional. Challenges are inevitable. The struggle within those challenges is just a choice we make. But the challenges that we go through are what create the brilliance that we become, right? And so the analogy that Sheila's sharing, that Theo so beautifully shares with us, is also in the realm of boundaries, and also in the realm of within the realm of relationships. There's a topic of boundaries, and there's a topic of doing for others when it's in their highest interest to do for themselves, right? So we want to create shortcuts and bridges, to collapsing time frames for people that we love. Our children is a perfect example, right? Where we want to spare them the hurt, we want to spare them the struggle, we want to spare them, but those are life lessons that they're going to have to learn to develop compassion and self love and confidence, and so when we're prone to do for others that which they really need to be doing for themselves, um, you know, we use that butterfly analogy so beautifully, that if you were to, like Sheila said, if you were to cut open that cocoon and try to help that butterfly, it's going to die. It's not going to have the musculature to be able to fly and to emerge. So it's a beautiful analogy, and it sounds even a little bit harsh and some people, well, I'm a doer, I'm a server, I mean, that's why I'm here, to assist others. And the reality is, the best way we can assist sometimes is by not assisting at all and allowing them to get their own learning.
Well, and I'm glad you used the word assist, because Theo corrects us. They told us not to say help, like I'm going to help this person, because help infers that they're lesser than, that they're not capable. And so when we think I want to do something, to use the word assist. And if you think about it, I mean, I test that, they're very specific with words. And so I test it out, and you test help as opposed to assist. You can see
different
Oh,
vibration.
huge difference in vibration.
Yeah. Very, very important. I agree. It's like those little tweaks can really just make such a difference energetically as they land and impact. It's just such a great example even when we consider something like, help versus assist. We were talking about it and contemplating it. It's like, makes you realize how sensitive we are. If you use that word in context of something that you're going to assist me with versus saying assist, it feels and lands different. And everything from there will be different.
Kind of a collaborative vibe, it's a us doing this together vibe, instead of me kind of telling or whatever, guiding your process. You could learn together, basically.
I would suggest that your viewers and listeners try it with their kids, because I just had the vision of my oldest daughter when she started tying her own shoes before she was 2. And I would say, well, let me help you. And she'd get real indignant. I can do it myself, and she could. I mean, she at a very early age. But I've noticed, when saying to my grandchildren, now, can I assist you?
Let me
There's
assist you.
It lands, to your point, so much differently than let me help you with it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. Agreed. And I think that goes for all of the. There's so many things that I encourage people to look at. I mentioned this on an episode the other day. I think of like my friend years back, very good friend of mine. If you would say, "Oh, I can't wait for, this interview with Sheila and Marcus," it's like the difference between that and I'm looking forward to. I can't wait is sort of at the expense of the present and sort of dishonors the present, the now. Like, oh, this is going to be better than what's happening. And it's like very different, right?
absolutely.
I'm looking forward to.
Huh.
And so, these little tweaks and spelling, right, which is casting a spell. Our words are our wands. It's very, very important. And so, yeah, I'm glad that came up. I have a question for you. I know Theo talks about a soul integration process, and I'm just curious, what that entails.
I'll share just kind of the parameters of it. So we've been talking about it actually the whole conversation in different forms. We got a program starting in next month in September. It's 12 weeks, and we teach. It's called the Soul Integration Experience with Theo, and it's called Thrive. And Brandon, it's really to what Sheila was talking about earlier. It's a combination of inner child and shadow work from this lifetime, and it is partially that. It's a combination of soul retrieval as well in the shamanic traditions, which you're very familiar with,
Mm,
which it is that as well. And it's also a multidimensional process, meaning that we are incorporating memories from past incarnations in which the beliefs that were adopted in those lifetimes are influencing the emotional patternings that we have in this lifetime, right? So so
right.
the process is one of self discovery, deep personal self discovery, and I just like I said earlier, love your term remembrance. So it's a remembrance of who we really are. Right, and as we look at our lives and we look at all of the fear and the resistance and the lack of trust, the uh, the perception that we have of circumstances and conditions in our lives that hold us back from like I said earlier, becoming and creating and doing and being the things that we really desire. This process of repatterning, understanding, getting to the core circumstance of where the belief was created, and then with the awareness of that, it's a fragmented aspect of the soul that typically was fragmented during an experience in which the higher out of survival, basically, it's a basic
Mm-hmm.
survival
Mm-hmm.
response to circumstances and conditions in which these beliefs were created. And now with this process of soul integration, we can repattern, completely re rewrite the script as Theo and many others would have described it as, where we literally begin to adopt new beliefs about ourselves that are empowering, not limiting. And like I said, we've been talking about soul integration the most of this conversation, actually. And what is the end result? Where does it
Right.
where does it lead us to in our lives? It leads us into confidence. It leads us into making decisions. Theo talks about it, the magic of a decision, the energetic response from the quantum field when a decision gets made. Circumstances and conditions and soul integration will allow us to move into this awareness of this being true, and ultimately, from our own personal experience, the truth of it is all about. Um, when a decision gets made and we can make these decisions confidently and trust our intuitive knowing, everything begins to change, meaning that circumstances and conditions that looked limiting to us now get rearranged in such a way that they actually are in support of the steps forward that we're taking now that we have this newfound confidence and belief in ourselves. And what does that mean? It means better relationships. It means better health because we feel and know ourselves as divine spiritual beings who deserve to have a super healthy body, deserve to feel really comfortable in our skin and have that sense of soul centeredness, a
Mm-hmm.
sense of peace. Relationships get better. Our ability to manifest and collapse time frames between where we are in life and where we really want to be gets shorter and shorter because we're working now in a new, at a higher vibrational frequency. And I think, Sheila, that's kind of the, if we look at it all as energy, I would kind of, say that's really what's going on is that we're raising our vibrational frequency, tapping into all of these wondrous things.
Yes, and
Mm.
we're being told by Theo that the new dynamic, if you would, of relationship is preferential, not needy. Because in our old lives, we would project our woundedness out, our expectations that hadn't been met for us, um,
Mm-hmm.
onto another, and another cannot do that for us. They cannot fill up or heal that wound. That's an inside out job. And so that's where soul integration assists in that process of letting go of those beliefs and becoming aware. It's revealed to us in the process where that belief about ourselves, that unloving belief, first began. And it doesn't matter how horrific the circumstance or the challenge or situation was, we can change our perception of it. It won't change the event because that's history, but our perception can change when we look for the blessings, the gifts
Mm-hmm.
that we received, and who we are today because of it. If we know that our soul draws to us perfectly what we're to grow from. And so we can bless that part of self and we can change that perception by rewriting the script of the belief.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the one power that we always wield in a world that is, you know, full of surprises and things that feel out of our control is what is my, perspective that I'm going to bring to this occurrence in this moment. And that's really where all of our power will always reside, I would say. Um, so I'm curious, with relationship, um, I'm always fascinated by what are the workings on the other side. How does, you know, someone who is significant in one lifetime, I'm always curious, what's the history there? And like the way you guys found each other, or even with my current partner, there was a sort of a string of synchronicity and breadcrumbs that led to us being together. And so, I'm curious what Theo has had to say about soul level relationships and soul families.
Oh, they have a lot to say about it.
Mm-hmm.
And to Marcus's point earlier, when we meet somebody, to the point of haven't we met before, is we have a
Mm-hmm.
reaction one way or the
Yeah.
other. Either we're attracted or we're off put, or there's nothing.
Right.
There's the three different things. If it's nothing, then you probably haven't known each other before,
Right.
and usually you don't even meet because there's no vibrational match. But
Mm-hmm.
we're told that when you have some reactivity, some connectivity with someone, positive or negative, you've probably known them before. And
Mm-hmm.
so we begin meeting our soul family. They're a like vibration. We think alike. We've chosen, as Theo says, we've chosen, soul family chooses to incarnate together in a particular incarnation. And like now, those of us and yourself, Brendan, we're probably soul family because we've come to
Mm-hmm.
teach and be here together on this same frequency. And so we begin to meet each other. Then there's the soulmates and there's twin flames and all those terminologies that people have adopted and are seeking. But they're all vibrational too, because our souls are vibrational frequencies and energy that is constant. It's just that we've jumped into this earth suit we call a body, a human body, to navigate this planet. But we are multidimensional beings. But we find it interesting to you. I like your analogy of the the psychic or soulful breadcrumbs, that
Mm-hmm.
those synchronicities where if this hadn't happened, I wouldn't have been here. And the same thing with Marcus and I. Um,
Yeah.
if I hadn't written the Fifth Dimension book, and this lady named Donna hadn't read it, and I hadn't met her in Santa Fe, and then she moved to Arizona and met Marcus and gave him the book, and then I came to town and she wanted to have us meet. All of those
Yeah.
things were in place for us to meet each other. I mean, the story's
Yeah.
much more fun than that, but but
Yeah.
those were
Right. Right.
the
Right.
breadcrumbs you talk about.
Those are the Reese's
Yeah.
Pieces we call them, to steal a
Yeah.
little
I
line out
like
of the
that.
E.T. movie. I think one more thing, just one more thing I
Yeah, I
want to
like
just
that.
add to what Sheila said too is Theo's been talking to us a lot about a couple things lately that we've been kind of fleshing out together with them in some of our mentoring programs, and one of them is the distractions that the intellectual mind creates for ourselves, right? And you know this, Brandon. They're Theo is really exalting us to be in our heart, to move into the feeling space, the intuitive space, the psychic space,
Yeah.
the authentic space, if you will. And to what Sheila was talking about with soulmates and twin flames and all that, Theo just basically just says, look, just feel into everything. Quit labeling things, right? Move into that
Mm-hmm.
childlike wonder of first of all who you
Mm-hmm.
are and who you are with others. And I think that within romantic relationships today, we see a lot of people, men and women, that come into our community that are um, desiring a more spiritual connection, if you will, put that in quotes, a spiritual connection with regards to
Mm-hmm.
their romantic partners. It's and particularly when we're manifesting new relationships, or if we're trying to just make good relationships even better, it just that this whole topic of communication, of sharing from the heart, of not making another wrong, of honoring each other's beliefs, but also in our in our actions and our deeds, placing an invitation, as opposed to forcing or pushing our beliefs on others, just placing an invitation to be able to just say, this is what I'm experiencing, this is what I'm feeling, this is, oh my God, this happened, and it made me feel so indescribably joyous because now I know that I'm more than my physical body. There's a whole world uh, available, this whole non-physical world, if you will, beyond our five senses, beyond our third dimensional reality, that just makes life so amazing. Like you said earlier, what an incredible time it is to be alive. And I think that realm of relationships, to your original question about soul family coming together, remembering each other, and even having past life experiences together simultaneously, like Sheila did on our very first date, which we write about in the first chapter of the book. That we actually had a collapse of time and space and a remembrance, a full-on physical change
Wow.
of clothes. We were sitting outside a sweat lodge in the Havasupai Indian reservation at the bottom of the Grand
Wow.
Canyon, and we literally had, we don't know how long it lasted. There was two little Native American children who had become we'd become friends with. They were with us the whole time we were down there, and we were sitting outside waiting our turn to go into a sweat lodge. And this whole simultaneously, Sheila looked at me. She said, "Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" And I began to describe to her what I was seeing and experiencing, and she filled in the blanks of what my
Wow.
experience was, and sharing what she was seeing and feeling. You know that those experiences are indisputable in terms of confirmation, if you will, of several things. Not the least of which was that we've lived before, and certainly, maybe more importantly, we've lived
Hmm.
before together, and here we are again. You know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious about that because, of course, I always love stories of synchronicity, serendipity, positive paranormal stories. It's kind of like a go-to, on the show. And so, just to ask you a couple questions around that. So, are you saying that you were actually at a sweat lodge in this life, or you were having the experience of a past life in
Both.
a sweat lodge?
It was both. So we were sitting outside a
Okay.
sweat lodge in this life. I think we were 2 or 3 days into our first date together, which, by the way, I'm not sure if I would recommend a 5-day camping trip to anybody for their first date. But we were, fo- we were,
Sounds like it
we
worked
were,
out for you, though. So I don't know.
we were very fortunate. Yeah, we were. But yeah, we were sitting outside the sweat lodge when that happened, and we found ourselves in the same place hundreds of years prior, because we didn't physically
Wow.
move, but the surroundings changed. The children's attire changed. Our attire changed. It's
Wow.
kind of, those experiences are kind of hard to really,
No,
to
it was
explain. But
we were in a place. I'm sorry, Marcus,
yeah,
to
yeah,
interrupt you,
help
but
me fill in the blanks.
let me help you out here.
Yeah, help me out.
We were there in real time, and then it was like this overlay dimensionally that we were in another time and place, and we could
Wow.
physically see. It's like, I'm getting to date myself now, but there are many photographers that still use real film and
Mm-hmm.
cameras, not just digital, but like a double or triple exposed photograph. I mean, it would be
Right.
more like a
Right.
double exposed, where it was a layer upon that, where we could see ourselves. And
Mm.
it was quite a magnificent experience. We've had a few of those together, which have been really fun. And they've happened
Yeah.
spontaneously. I mean, it's not something we've
Mm-hmm.
intended. It's just, oh, here, you need to
Yeah.
know this now, I guess,
Well, I would
from
say
our
Yeah.
soul.
I
Right.
would say
Right.
though that we did. I would just add, I think we did intend them. Maybe not in that moment, but I think that the intention that we have in our meditations and in our communication with the non-physical, we are, at least I can speak for myself, and I know I speak for you too, Sheila, that we're always intending to have miracles happen. We're always intending for these kinds of experiences. And and and
Yes.
and, and, and I would say even being open and receptive and allowing for these experiences to come in, even though in that moment we weren't doing anything specific to create the experience. I think in a broader sense, we definitely have intended, and the reason I share that is I think that's an important part of manifesting peak extraordinary spiritual experiences, is just having that awareness, that receptivity to these experiences, and then maybe even more
Mm-hmm.
importantly, gratitude for when we do have them, which will manifest more of that which we're grateful for. You know.
Right. Right. Yeah. Was your experience? Because I've had several friends who've talked about having similar experiences where there was like a bilocation effect, like they felt equally there as in this lifetime. And one story that comes to mind that I just think is fascinating is a friend of mine who has a lot of this sort of stuff. And she said she's sitting at a piano and it triggered her into a past life, a couple hundred years ago, where she was at a piano playing a song and was in a very like emotional state because her partner had left or something. And she was able to play the song in this life, even though she doesn't play piano. And I thought, wow, once the like skills start bridging as well. So I'm curious, was it sort of an equal, like I'm neither here nor there in both experience for you
I
two?
would say both, but I want to just comment for a second on your friend's experience. That was within the entirety of her soul. That she was
Yeah,
having a
right.
multi-dimensional experience of an aspect of her soul who knew how to do that in that lifetime, showed up. You know, it just showed up,
Yeah,
and
right.
that's really what happened with us. To your question, I think, Sheila, there is a boldness to that, though, don't you think?
Mm,
Yes. And to your point about her ability, it triggered the thought of what Theo's taught us about the Akashic records. They say it's not a library somewhere where you go to look yourself up. It's all that information is in every cell of our body because it's all our soul vibration. And so that's why she could tap into that part of herself because it's in her. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
oversoul, or that's sum total of all that she's been and will be
Yeah.
and is now, is in that
Yep.
frequency.
Yeah. Yeah. And as Theo's spoken to, you know, obviously you have souls that are maybe have more lifetime experience, or those, I know, if I recall, Theo has never been human. Is that
That's
correct?
correct.
And so, you know, understanding relationship and, you know, thinking about Theo sort of dictating about human relationship, but yet hasn't had that experience, or someone in a relationship with maybe a soul who hasn't been here very many times. How does all that play into? I guess that's really two different
I
questions, but
love this question because, of course, people would wonder. So we asked them, how do you know so much about relationships when you've never been in a body? And they said they're very keen observers and they've observed
oh
over
wow,
centuries. So they've
oh wow,
learned,
okay,
they learn through us um, those experiences. But when they come from a solid state of unconditional love, they see the dance of how we're trying to get back to that. And um, so, what you're talking about is soul age. And Theo talks about soul age. You know, we have young souls, adolescent souls, mature souls, old souls. And how does that come to be? Well, they say it's specific to the earth plane, to the human experience, that the soul is eternal. But when they're talking about soul age in the sense of emotional learning, that's what they're talking about because we come here to learn emotions. So, to your point, an older soul being with a younger soul, if you're in a primary relationship and there's that much separation, oftentimes those don't work out because a younger soul doesn't have the maturity, the emotional maturity that an old soul would have. And that's the best way I can describe it because they're still learning. So you would see in a younger or even an adolescent soul more narcissism. Um, and in an older soul, just like maturity happens, you know, if you're thinking about a
right.
mature or an old soul, they've had enough human life experiences and emotional experiences to temper those other personality traits, if you would.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense, and it's such an interesting concept to think of this bigger narrative and game that we're sort of enmeshed in. It's like Russian dolls, you know.
Exactly.
we're playing things out here, but then there's a bigger story and a bigger story and a bigger story, and yeah, it's so mind blowing. So, man, there's so many interesting things to sort of explore with this. One thing that comes up for me is the idea of relationship, and you know, I believe that relationship is happening for the purpose of growth, primarily for the souls coming together. That could be a minute, a month, a year, a lifetime. And, you know, I believe we come together for the purpose of growth, for our soul's evolution, and whatever gifts we have each other in relation to that, we you know, share those gifts. When that has been, the opportunity for growth has exhausted itself, it will, if you will, then a natural separation occurs. And I believe that's when, you know, a lot of times our humanness comes in and gets in the way. It's like we get attached to a person or a face or the habits that we share together, and yet there's this natural separation that maybe wants to occur in a particular relationship, and we resist that, and therefore, you know, time for the pain to come in, more pain, because you're trying to force something beyond its shelf life in a way. So I'm curious what Theo would have to say about that, all of that.
Well, that's true because if you think about it, um, our longevity in these human earth suits, these bodies,
Mm-hmm.
was so much shorter. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're saying now that we could live to be 150 years old. So
Mm-hmm.
you can live several lifetimes in 150 years with
Yeah.
many, many relationships and interaction. It wasn't that long ago that the lifespan was 40.
Yeah.
And
Right.
so, of course, we're going to have relationships that we've come together for a certain time, purpose, experience, and that completes. And there are many teachers, including THEO, that have talked about soul contracts, that we've
Mm-hmm.
chosen to come in and do that thing, whatever the thing is that we are there to learn from with each other. But what we've done in the old paradigm of neediness is project those expectations onto the other person that have been unmet on the inner, that
Mm-hmm.
love. And so then our old way of being is to blame, have anger, and victimization. And in our book, The Art of Relationship, we talk about honorable separation. Whatever that is, if it's a friendship or a primary partner, work related separation. You remember how you first came together, the excitement and the love of those moments. You want to retain that and those that goodness. And so everything else that challenged you in the relationship that grew you, hopefully, is a blessing. So if we can hold that in our minds, but most of the time we create a circumstance to get angry. So it's easier to feel anger than it is grief. The
Mm.
sadness of what could have been in the relationship or a fantasy of what we wanted it to be, whatever we're grieving. If we can be angry, we don't have to feel that uncomfortable feeling of grief
Mm.
and the
Mm-hmm.
sadness.
Yeah.
So that's the dynamics that we've dealt with, but we can change that too.
Well, it's also
Mm.
important. I think that one more thing I would add to that is how important the energetically it is to end one relationship and its impact upon the next. So, as we come to a completion, like you said earlier, that we use the term reason, season, or lifetime. Reason could be a moment, right? Season could be whatever it is, and then
Mm-hmm.
soul family will typically be with us for a lifetime. But it's in that the energy. Do we end relationships with kindness and compassion and love and gratitude, or like Sheila was just talking about, do we end them with blame, anger, victimization, and so forth? And you can just draw not even a dotted line, a direct line right into your next relationship. Now, this could be personal, romantic, professional, whatever it is. Same energetic principle applies to it, that it's going to deeply influence how you begin another relationship based upon how you ended the previous one.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an important thing to, I mean, in this conversation can go so deep in so many ways. I mean, like, for example, myself and my partner, we have an open relationship, and that's sort of an unconventional approach. And from one perspective, and from another, it is, people like Christopher Ryan, who wrote the book Sex at Dawn, will talk about like, oh, this is actually who we've been. If you look at sort of what our ancestors were like and our connection to chimps and bonobos and yada yada yada. So we don't have to go deep down that. That's a whole nother rabbit hole. But yeah, it's one of those things. For us, it's like this idea of love in such a way that your partner feels free. And I'm not saying that's for everyone, and everyone has to subscribe to that, but for us, it works, and of course, it comes with its own set of challenges, and certainly instigates growth. And so I'm just wondering if THEO has spoken to any of that side of things, like different relationship dynamics and structures, and homosexual relationships, and all the different configurations that
He
there can
honors
be.
every form of relationship. I mean, there's never any. I mean, everything that the energy that we're working with Theo is absolute non-judgment, acceptance, oneness, never any judgment of any relationship whatsoever. You have an agreement, you're able to, most relationships end because of unmet expectations. So if you have an agreement, you're good at communicating it, you're good at establishing expectations or guardrails, if you will, within a relationship that you can then be integrous in maintaining. There's no judgment about any form of relationship of any kind whatsoever. It's a soul choice, right? The notion that someone comes in as a homosexual and can go through, what is it, conversion therapy? Are you freaking kidding me? I mean,
Yeah.
come on. These are just
Yeah.
soul choices that people, souls incarnate,
Right.
knowing, of course, the learnings that are going to be within
Yeah.
whatever sexual orientation that chooses in that particular lifetime.
Right.
And
Right.
one is not greater than the other.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Right.
again the challenge and the experiences that you have and whatever, however you're expressing in relationship with others is the gift. The gift you've said yes to that curriculum that however it
Mm-hmm.
appears and presents to you, only you know, and your partner or the person you're relating to on your own soul level. And what Theo says is the greatest gift we give in relationships is good communication. If we
Mm-hmm.
communicate, if we
Absolutely. It's everything.
yeah, if we communicate our truth, they said that your truth is a gift you give the world. And it doesn't have to
Mm.
be harsh. They often
Mm-hmm.
talk about holding boundaries and they've given an analogy which I love because it's so simple. Because we've all done it. We've all done it. A friend or a partner says, let's go out to dinner. And they propose that you go to an Italian restaurant and you're not feeling Italian or it upsets your stomach, whatever. You don't want to go to that restaurant, but we acquiesce. We say yes.
Yep.
And then we go
Yep.
and our tummy's upset or oh, we couldn't find anything we
Mm-hmm.
wanted, and then we get kind of gritchy about it, and we
Mm.
well, I shoulda said no because I didn't really want to. Those kinds
Mm-hmm.
of plays we do in our head. But how much better would it have been to say, I would love to spend that time with you and have a meal with you. Could we choose some place else that we both could enjoy?
Mm-hmm.
Person just suggested something. It wasn't written in
Yep.
stone. Um, and it's how soft is that and loving is that? But we get all caught up in our heads around those things. It's just
Mm-hmm.
remembering to tell the truth. It doesn't have to
That's it.
be harsh. But most people think that truth has to be given in anger or some kind of
Mm-hmm.
energy
Right. Right.
because
Right.
they're afraid that they're going to be judged or not liked or not loved, whatever. But it's the opposite that happens because then trust is built. People know when you speak, you tell your truth. There's no hidden agenda, there's no underlying ickiness.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
so it,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh,
it's no, go ahead. I'm just rambling.
I was I was gonna say, yeah, I found that to be 100% the most important thing. Is with and my current partner is a speech therapist, and so luckily communication is a big part. Obviously communication is a big part of my world, and so in even that, as much as we're such clear, concise, what I would say is, over communicators sometimes. It's sometimes there's things that are hard to bring up or that you're like nervous about saying, and so I found myself at times like, oh yeah, I don't want to bring this up or talk about this or whatever. The which I think a lot of people do, and then the alternative is keeping it in and it's stuffing it down kind of thing. talk about something festering energetically and becoming, and then of course it can explode in weird ways and comes out in weird ways. And every time I've went there and shared whatever it is as kindly, concisely, with as little emotional charge as possible, the relief afterwards, it's like allowing the energy to move. And so I would encourage everyone listening, from my own personal experience, like, yeah, imagine what it would be like if you could go sit with your partner and just tell them everything that you're thinking and feeling, no matter what that is. Now, granted, some of your partners are, probably less receptive than my own is, and so I get the challenge of it. But I'm just a big believer in what you were just kind of saying, Sheila. Is like, say what the truth is calmly, kindly as possible, and let the cards fall where they may. Because the truth will lead you to where you're supposed to be. That may lead you to your partner hearing these things you've been pushing down and repressing for, 20 years, and all of a sudden want to leave you over it, and that's can be so frightening and whatever. But I just truly believe, professing our truth is going to lead us exactly where we're meant to be.
And that fear. Yeah. And that fear you just spoke about is what stops people.
Mm-hmm.
Because the greatest fear of all of us is abandonment. So, of course it is.
Or causing pain to someone that we love, because we know their story is, if you think or feel this thing, then you must not love me, or whatever. It's different. It varies.
And to use the word I feel, right? Not I think, I feel. And I feel, not you make me feel, because nobody makes anybody do anything. Nobody makes anybody feel anything.
Absolutely.
It's our feelings. It's I feel. Or how about I feel loved when? Or I would feel, there's a number of ways that you can hold it, holding hands, looking at each other in the eyes. I mean, just being in that energetic bubble, if you will, with each other of compassion and love, and not judging and not blaming. Even if it's a highly charged situation, you can diffuse it with love. Theo's always asking us, Brandon, what would love do? What would love do? And I've asked them what that means. I've asked them many times, what would love do? And they always say, respond with compassion. Respond with compassion, and with love.
And they also say truth will always be accepted, because we all have a truth barometer in us. I know when somebody speaks truth to me, I call them God bumps. I get a chill up my spine, and the hair on my arm stands up. And when I speak it to somebody, I get the same physical response. We all have something that lets us know, well, that's the truth. And when we feel that, that's where the trust starts being built, and it opens the communication for sure. But Marcus and I have this thing, and we started it in the very beginning of our relationship, was if we get grumpy with each other, and we all do this, we can be out of sorts, or something happens in the day and we're on edge, and our communication isn't going so well, right? We're just, everybody does this sometimes. We'll stop, and it may take a minute, go in the other room, and then come back and say, can we start that over again?
That's what we've been doing too. We do
and
that too.
It's huge when you do that. Don't you agree? It makes such a huge difference.
That's kind of our trigger word, do over. Okay, and there's one other thing that's kept our relationship really, I think, really in a very joyous vibe, and non-discordant, kind of stuff that every couple gets into, and that is to ask the question whenever there's a disagreement or an argument about anything, where there's a decision that has to be made, to which one of us is ultimately that most important to, right? So if Sheila feels strongly about something and I don't feel as strongly, even though I may disagree or want to do something else, I will always acquiesce, because she's obviously more passionate, and vice versa. And vice versa. Yeah.
Well, and in the beginning, when he wasn't on board, he would there would be an argument, and then we'd have to redo it. And now we'll say to each other, this is really important to me. Before it gets to that point, before it gets
Great.
weird. And that's made a huge difference too.
I love that. What a great way, what a great tip from a long, successful relationship as we sort of wind down here. This has been so incredible to connect with you both again. And of course, those out there listening, I know are going to want to know the best way. We threw out the website earlier. Maybe you can say that again, where's best to get the book and that
Absolutely.
Sort of
AskTheo.com, just as it sounds, AskTheo.com. And there's when you come into our community, we've certainly our intention is to love on you and engage with you and share some experiences with Theo. We've got a guided meditation called Raising Your Vibrational Frequency. We were talking about that earlier. We have an audio program in there. Theo answers 44 of life's greatest spiritual mysteries. We've got just an introduction to Theo's teachings and the experience of meditating with Theo. And then we've got a number of wonderful opportunities, some complimentary, some at very, very minimal investment for people to engage with us. We have a program starting in September called Thrive, the Soul Integration Experience, which we still have openings for as well, which is that 12-week mentoring program we were talking about that Theo is really going to guide us into taking a deep dive into the whole process of self-discovery. So asktheo.com. And we appreciate, Brandon, so much. By the way, man, it's great to see you again. I mean, this has been a real special time for us to be here and to enjoy being together again. So we're very grateful.
Likewise. It's so great. Hopefully it will be sooner than 6 years to the next time our paths cross. And I do have one final question for you both, my cliche closer, and it is this. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life, according to Sheila and Marcus Gillette?
I have one word: love.
Good answer. That gives you 59 seconds.
Yeah. The becoming of the state of being of unconditional love. And that's what all of Theo's teachings are funneling us into, the becoming of our natural state of unconditional love. And it's not a feeling or an emotion, it's an actual state of being. So it's becoming that state of being. That's how I would describe it. And it's and as we begin to feel that and move into that vibration and become that vibration, there really aren't words to describe kind of how awesome it really is.
It reminds me of a riddle years ago that I answered right. Someone was asking online, like this old website called Chat Roulette, where you just cycle through and see people, and he just had this riddle on the screen, and he said he wouldn't stop until someone got it right, and I got it right, and it was like, what has no conditions but one condition? Unconditional love is the answer.
There you go. You know.
Thank you both so much. Such a pleasure. Thank all of you out there for tuning in, your beautiful brainwaves and incredible hearts. Until next time, journey well. Also, before we sign off, I wanted to remind you to download the Golden Key audio or ebook as my free gift to you at goldenkey.gift using the Golden Key code POSITIVEHEAD. And please, if you enjoy my gift, leave a positive review on Amazon so others can find the book and unlock their lives with the help of the Golden Key as well.